Today's topic is programming language. What is a programming language? So before we talk about programming language, let's just talk about any other language. So any language, not just a programming language, is basically the system of communication. Just as we talk to different people using different languages, in the same way we talk to computers using a programming language. And just as different languages have their own grammar rules, in the same way a programming language has its own syntax, a certain set of programming rules. So for example, जैसे हम किसी और से बात करते हैं किसी और लैंग्वेज में, इट कुड बी हिंदी or English, any other language. In the same way, with the help of programming language, a user writes a program and this program talks to computer. We ask them to do something with the help of a programming language. And there are many programming languages. Java is a programming language, Python is another programming language, and each language has its syntax. That's why the program looks different. A Java program looks different than a Python program. Now moving on, if we talk about the programming languages, a very high level view of programming languages, then we can say कि तीन major categories होती हैं. The lowest level or the first level that we will talk about is the binary language, which is called the low level language. Why? Because it's basically 0 or 1. Machines understand 0 1, a stream of 0 1, so that's why it is called the low level language, which is basically the binary language. लेकिन binary language के साथ problem क्या है? The problem is that it is very difficult to understand. We cannot program everything in a stream of 0 and 1, so that's why many different languages were invented. So number 2, we'll talk about the assembly language, which is still a low level language but better than binary language. Why? Because it has some English keywords. So for example, अगर assembly में we need to write an instruction to add two numbers, then we would write something like this: add x and y, which means add x and y. Binary से better है, but still it is difficult to understand. So that's why high level languages were invented. For example, Java, Python, Ruby, C++. So we see in the bottom we have hardware or CPU, which actually runs a program, which actually does something, and it understands a binary language 0 1 0 1 0 0. Then we have the assembly language, for example. So assembly language has instructions like English keywords and some instructions. So a computer cannot directly understand the assembly language. To convert the instruction from assembly language to binary language, we have a component which is basically called assembler. Assembler का काम क्या है कि whatever we write in assembly language, it converts that instruction to the binary language so that the hardware or CPU can run that instruction, so that it can understand what to do. In the same way, when we have a programming language, high level programming language, let's say Java or Python, we cannot run it directly on the hardware or the CPU, because CPU cannot understand the syntax directly. So that's why the component that we have in this case, we call them compiler or interpreter, and it depends on the programming language. So जो भी हम high level language में लिखते हैं, for example, if it is Java, then we use a compiler. That compiler generates a .class file, and then when we run the .class file, the hardware or the CPU runs the assembly or the binary code, corresponding binary code. In the same way, जो भी कुछ अलग high level languages होती हैं, उनके अपने compiler and interpreter होते हैं, so that we can run that code on a computer. So it's a very brief summary of a programming language and the different kinds of programming language, the broad category of binary, assembly, and high level language.